All right, so as you're working through this handout today, make sure you are pausing and solving it before you watch the correct answer. And then if you still have a question, raise your hand and I'll come by and help you. So this first one says, the product of a number and -7 increased by 9 is at most 16. So the first thing I do is I start off with the math part. The product of a number and -7. So that means -7 times the number increased by 9, so plus 9, is at most, I'm going to save this till the last, 16. So now I have to figure out what inequality sign goes here. So when I read is at most 16. That means I want this to be 16, 15, 14, 13, something smaller than that. It can be 16 because it says at the most, but I want all of this stuff to be less than or equal to 16. All right, next problem. The difference between 11 and 1/4 of a number is no less than -8. So let's start with just the math part, not the inequality sign. The difference, so I'm going to be subtracting between 11, so we're going to write this in the same order it's written, and 1/4 of a number. So if I want to have 1/4 of a number, I take that number and I divide it by 4. And then I know that the result over here is -8. But then I read it and it says no less than. So I want this part right here to be no less than -8. So it can be -8, but I don't want anything smaller than that. So -7 would be fine, 0 would be fine, 7 would be fine. This needs to be no less than that. So that means it wants to be bigger than or equal to. Number 5. 10 subtracted from, so that's written a little different. 10 subtracted from, so that means that's going to come second, subtracted from something. The quotient of a number in -3, so write it in the same order, is at the least -1. So at least, if this is going to be at the least -1, that means -1 is okay, but I want everything else needs to be bigger. So that means this is going to be bigger than or equal to. So this is why you have to be careful looking at these words, and don't, just because it says least, it doesn't mean it should be a less than sign. All right, next one. The sum of 7/8 of a number and 20 is 34 at a minimum. So sum means add. So I'm going to be adding 7/8 of a number. So do y'all remember what the word of means? Well, that means to multiply. So this time I'm going to put 7/8 times a number, because that says 7/8 of a number, and 20. So I add 20 to it, is 34 at a minimum. At a minimum means the smallest number that I'm going to accept is 34. Everything else needs to be bigger. So I want this to be bigger than or equal to, because at a minimum means you're not going to accept anything less than that. All right, number 7. A number, so a number decreased by 19, so take away 19, divided by -6, is no more than 5. So I don't want this to be any more than, but it can be, so that means it's going to be less than or equal to 5. All right, let's read this first word problem. The school will not announce a snow day unless there is at least 10 inches of snow on the ground. If it has already snowed 1.5 inches outside, so we already have 1.5 inches, how much more must it snow? So x equals how much more do we need to not have school? So I like to just sort of take all the information and write it down. So I know that the school has to have at the least 10, right? That's when they say, okay, If it's equal to 10 inches, we're not having school today. So we already have 1.5, so let's put that down. We have 1.5 inches. So we got to figure out what are we going to add up in order to get at the least 10 inches. At least means they're going to cancel school if we have 10 or more, right? So that means we want all of this, the amount of snow we get, to be greater than or equal to 10 inches. So that way we don't have to go to school. All right, number 9. Mrs. Aries hired Jack, a math tutor, to help her son because of budget. She can pay him no more than $420 a month. That means she can pay $420, $300, $50, anything that's $420 or less. If Jack charges $35 per hour, so Jack charges $35 per hour, how many hours can he tutor each month? So here's what we don't know. So we know that the end result's going to be $420. So, and how much he charges is $35 per hour. So anytime you see the word per, that means you're going to multiply. So you multiply $35 per how many hours he works. So if he only works 1, so 35 times 1 would be $35. If he works 2 hours, it would be 35 times 2, which is 70. So we have to figure out how many hours, which is X, would he be able to work? She doesn't want to pay any more than, so she would pay $420, but this amount of money she's going to give him right here needs to be less than or equal to $420. All right, number 10. The Parkview Middle School football team will be playing in the state championship. The coach has free tickets that he will be distributing to his 52 players to give to their friends and family. If he would like to give each player at the least 3 tickets, how many total tickets must he have? All right, so he has 52 players. He wants to give at least 3 to each. So at least means he wants to give 3 or more to each player. How many total tickets must he have? So X is going to be what we don't know. That's how many tickets does he need? We don't know, so we're going to find that out. So he has 52 players, and he wants to give each one at the very least 3. So here's what we're going to find out. We're going to say, okay, 52 times 3 is going to give us how many tickets he would get for exactly. If he gave them all 3 tickets exactly, right? So, and that we want it to be, this is how many tickets. So he said he'll do that. At the least, he wants to give each of them 3, but he really would prefer to give them 3 or more. So this is the amount of tickets, so we want that to be bigger than or equal to this. Because if we multiplied this out and we found that number, that would be how many he would give each player if he gave them exactly 3 tickets each. So if he wants to give them more, then that means the number of tickets he wants to get would be more than or equal to that. All right, number 11. Kevin is taking a 2-part test in social studies. Part 1 is multiple choice and worth 60 points. Part 2 is worth 40 points. He must earn at least 86 points to pass the class. At the least 86 to pass class. If his teacher's already graded part 1 and he knows he got a 54, so he got a 54 on part 1. And what we don't know is how many points does he need to get on part 2. So this is part 2. How many points does he need? And he wants to get a score that is at the least. So this whole section here is Kevin's score. And he wants that to be at least, so it could be equal to, 86. So he wants his score to be 87, 89, something bigger than or equal to 86 so that he can pass his class. All right, Caitlin works a part-time job at the bookstore, which pays $55 a week. She has already saved $120 towards the purchase of a new iPad. How many weeks must she work in order to have more than the amount of money? So she gets paid $55 per week. She already has $120. She needs $450 or more, because it says in order to have more than the amount. So what we know is she has $120, so we're going to add on to that. She gets $55 per week. So X, what we don't know, is going to be the number of weeks she needs to work. So what we do is we would multiply that by how much money she gets paid per week to figure out how many more weeks she needs to work. And we know that the end result is 450. But this right here, she wants to earn more than that because it doesn't say or equal to. It says how many weeks must she work in order to have more than. So we want this just to be more than, not equal to. And number 13, the parking meter charges $2 for the first hour, then 75 cents after. Note, oh, sorry, note, not Nate. Nate only has $5. How many hours can he park? So he has $5 total. We know he has to pay $2 for the first hour plus 75 cents for every other hour. So we're going to multiply that by the number of hours. X equals number of hours he can park. And we know that this is how much he's going to pay. But he only has $5. So he cannot pay more than he has. So this amount needs to be less than or equal to $5 because he doesn't have, this is how much money he's going to be able to pay, and he doesn't have more than 5.